everybody, and welcome back to Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. Today, we're talking about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, queer youth mentorship. We are lucky enough to have Nicki Hangsleben here with us today. Now, Nicki is the executive director and founder of QUEERSPACE Collective. QUEERSPACE is the first mentorship program created specifically for LGBTQ plus youth in the state of Minnesota. Well, welcome, Nicki. I'm really excited.
I'm so happy to be here.
I have wanted to have you onto this show for a while now, so this is like a dream come true.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're doing incredible work, so please share with us. Tell us about QUEERSPACE Collective.
Yeah, so QUEERSPACE was founded, we call it QUEERSPACE for short. QUEERSPACE was founded about 3 years ago. And we provide mentorship to LGBTQ plus youth. That's kind of our main programming and where we really started. Yeah. We work with kids 12 to 17-year-olds, and most of them are trans or gender nonconforming, and we match them with mentors in the community. And we have a one-on-one mentorship program where the kids and the mentor hang out in the community, grab a coffee, go for a walk, kind of go bowling. We do a lot of group events. We bring them together. And then we do some youth workshops also. So we're doing a bowling workshop. We did a Film North workshop. But really just creating these spaces for connection and community and to reduce isolation for our young people.
Now, it's QUEERSPACE for short, but what is the collective aspect?
Yeah, so we really are collaborative in kind of all we do. So when we developed QUEERSPACE and launched it, we really wanted to create a program and an organization that was committed to working collectively with other youth organizations, other queer organizations, parents, and the broader community. And so partnerships is really essential to everything we do. So that is kind of like the emphasis behind the collective.
Now, you and my husband went to grad school together.
Yeah.
You said QUEERSPACE has been around for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Aaron, the husband I talk crap about all the time, I think he went to night school, and it took him about 5 years.
Yeah.
And so there was this in-person period, and then there was an online component. Mm-hmm. Was QUEERSPACE like in your mind while you were in grad school?
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, St. Thomas. So St. Thomas has a social entrepreneurship class, and I took that in 2019. So I think Aaron and I actually started the same year and probably graduated close to around the same time.
Nice.
And we were in a leadership class together. Can I tell you how we first met?
Oh, please. Okay.
And then I'll pop into the rest. But anyways, we were in a leadership class together, and the first night we all had to introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about ourselves. And I said, like, hey, I'm Nicki. I'm married to my wife, and I have kids, and just kind of in a very general way outed myself to the class because I try to really show up authentically in all the spaces where I show up. And then Aaron introduced himself after and also noted that he was gay and came up to me at the end of class and was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that you came out in class because I didn't know in a Christian school or a Catholic school, like how receptive folks would be to our community. And he's like, you just kind of like made it easier. So
that's so nice.
Yeah, no, it was so sweet. Yeah, so we just had a nice little connection after that. So
it's nice for other people to come on here and say nice things about my husband. That's a stark contrast to the way I usually talk about it.
Oh my gosh, he's fabulous too. You both are.
He is wonderful. Now, I guess I'm gonna dig through your memory here.
Yeah.
You mentioned your wife?
Yes.
Did he mention his wonderful, at the time, boyfriend?
I don't remember.
I
don't remember.
A coy
yeah.
answer.
No, I really don't.
We got engaged, and then I'm going to say in January of maybe 2020. Mm-hmm. We got married in the fall of that year, so total COVID lockdown wedding. And he had like an NBA-related competition.
Oh, yes, we did that too.
Oh, did you do it together?
Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, Rhombus or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got married at a park.
Yes.
We came back to like our courtyard, and then he left me and went upstairs
to do the pitch with us.
Yes.
And we're all like, "You're doing this on your wedding day?" Yeah, I was there.
That is more like the type of story I tell about it.
Yeah, I love that. You forget about all those
Yeah, well, a lot of
connections
people
in
just forget about
life.
COVID in general. You're like, I don't want to talk about anything in
Yeah,
those 3 years,
yeah.
which is part of why the Department of Health helps sponsor this show through a grant, because people need to remember, and we bounce back.
Yeah.
Like, and you were having ideas about queer space even during that period. So you mentioned a social entrepreneurship class.
Yeah.
Does queer space now look like how you were thinking about it all those years ago?
That's a great question.
Thank
So
you. Every time someone says that, I say thank you.
so I pitched QueerSpace for the Fowler Innovation Competition at St. Thomas,
Oh, okay.
and when I started talking to folks about it, all of this, there was a lot of energy and interest behind it. And I was still working full time in international development. I hadn't even thought about like starting a new org. But I kept talking to more people, and it was during 2020, fall of 2020, and we were just seeing how isolated kids were, and queer and trans youth especially were feeling even more isolated.
Yeah.
And so, so the original vision was a one-on-one mentorship program, which we've started. We added a training and consulting initiative since then. A lot of organizations like YMCA's, Big Brothers Big Sisters, they reached out and said like, hey, we want to be more inclusive of LGBTQ plus youth in our youth orgs. And so we were like, oh, that's smart. Let's work with them. So all the spaces where kids show up, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to just come to queer space to feel more included. They can like feel more included in all the other spaces outside of school.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we just did a big project with Best Buy last year that we wrapped up. We worked with another connection. We worked with all their teen tech centers across the country,
Yes.
and did some inclusivity training with them to help make their centers more inclusive. And that was an amazing project, and Best Buy's been a great supporter. And I'm not just saying that because Aaron's there too. It's like it's all coming back to Aaron this morning.
It is all coming back to Aaron. The Aaron episode. So I also used to work at Best Buy a number of years ago. That's where Aaron and I met.
Oh, cute.
I did not like my job there at the time, and so I would spend a lot of time down at the coffee shop, chatting up the baristas, because I've always been a talker.
Yeah.
And so he saw me there and literally approached and like tried to ask me out, but I was so engaged in my conversation with the barista that he literally had to go back to work. So later on, we met at Jet Set at the former location in North Loop. And literally, I think we've been together ever since.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, cute.
Well, back to queer space again.
Yes, back to queer space.
Let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's talk your programs and services, because you've mentioned some workshops. Sounds like you can go bowling or something. But like, what does this look like?
Yeah, so the kids we serve right now are ages 12 to 17.
Okay.
And so they can join the program by being matched with a mentor, and we call that our one-on-one mentorship program.
Now, does that limit the number of kids you're able to serve? Like, do you have enough mentors?
We're always looking for more mentors.
Okay.
So if you're watching this and you're interested, go to our website and sign up to be a mentor. And
Is that QUEERSPACECollective.org?
QUEERSPACECollective.org.
Yes. I thought it was .org, but I didn't want to say .com and send people to the wrong place.
It's .org. Yeah. So that's our one-on-one mentorship program. And then we also developed a group mentorship program, and we call it our workshops, because we felt like group mentoring just sounds kind of boring.
Clinical.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our youth workshops we're collaborating with different organizations in the cities to provide, and we're in St. Cloud also, which we can talk about too, but we, in both St. Cloud and the Twin City metro area, and we do a 6 to 8 week program where we do like art focus, or we're going to do a bowling workshop at Bryant Lake Bowl that starts in a couple weeks.
Okay.
And we bring the kids together, like, 15 to 20 kids, and a few mentors and like a queer instructor. And then we just do fun activities, build community, weave in themes of mentorship and like identity, and just kind of give spaces for kids to show up. And I mean, as a queer adult, I know it always feels good to be in queer spaces where I feel like I can just be myself and know that, right? And so providing that for kids, and parents are so grateful because they're worried about their kids, so they sign them up for these programs. And
creating that sense of community is so valuable, especially for kids at a certain age where they're more vulnerable. The parents let them go, and then they are off in school, and who knows what's happening in school, and then they come back, and will the kids tell you about what's really going on in school or not? Who's to say? But also even at an older age, because I think you said up to 17. Some kids might be out of school at 17. I'm not sure. I might be showing my own age by then at that point. But when I had more of like a party house in Atlanta decades ago, people would just come and hang out. And it would just be like a place. And we didn't really have the terminology around it, like, oh, this is a community of crazy party kids. Or this is like a safe space. I didn't have a rainbow flag on my front door or anything. It was just like, oh, okay, you know this person? Of course they can come over if they want to.
Yeah.
Or who are you and how did you get here? But yeah, here's a coffee.
Yeah.
But once you lose that, you really experience like the importance of having that community. And so it's not lost on me, the service that you provide, but it is kind of wild to me that we didn't have anything before.
I know. That's why when I was thinking about this in my MBA program, I started doing a lot of research and was like, okay, well, who's mentoring the queer and trans youth out there? And saw that there were only like, I don't know, less than 10 across our country and nothing happening in Minnesota. So I'm like, well, let's try it. Yeah, so we are looking, so we've expanded to St. Cloud. That's going great. The youth workshops funded by Blue Cross Blue Shield has been another kind of expansion. And now we have a new 3-year strategy that we just launched last week.
Well, hit me with, okay. We've got things to unpack, but we've got time.
Okay.
So let's, you said we were going to circle back to St. Cloud. So let's do St. Cloud first, and then we'll talk strategy.
Okay, cool. So St. Cloud, we wanted to replicate what we were doing in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin City metro area, in St. Cloud and the surrounding areas because we wanted to reach more rural communities. And so we're in the city of St. Cloud, which isn't very rural, but we work with kids kind of all around the area.
Now, in my mind, the communities in the Twin Cities area and the St. Paul community are bit different.
Very different than St. Cloud, right?
Okay. St. Cloud, sorry.
Yeah, no, I know, St. Paul, St. Cloud. Yeah, I mean, St. Cloud's and surrounding areas have had a lot of challenges in the school systems. They recently passed some rules where some of the schools can't display flags anymore, which is such an indication for young people to know, like, this is a safe person to be with, and they feel welcomed. And we know when we see, right, as humans, we see like a rainbow flag in a shop and we're like, oh, okay, cool. Like they appreciate our community. So we hired a former teacher to be our program manager there. She's amazing, and Mandy, and we worked with Mentor Minnesota to develop a model, and it was going to be similar to the one-on-one mentorship model. When we started to develop that, we heard from mentors and community members that they were nervous about being out in the community one-on-one with a young person. So we then shifted that model, teamed up in our collective kind of way of existing with St. Cloud Pride, and started doing a monthly drop-in with them, so kind of any kids can show up. And then we took our youth workshops model and are doing that in St. Cloud as well, so that you have, 2 to 4 adults in the room and 10 to 15 kids. And everyone feels safer with that, and the kids want that. So we're learning that, depending on the community and really listening to the community to what they need, of course, is always really important. And to just kind of, as we expand, to really be intentional about what that looks like and what works best. So
I'm not surprised to hear that it takes more effort and more resources in more rural communities. But the support is so needed there. And you so frequently hear about, as an adult gay man, people who grew up in Wyoming and didn't meet another gay person until they moved to the big city, which is which may be here, maybe St. Cloud to them. And so I applaud the work that you're doing for sure. Is your expansion strategy or ideas or dreams limited to Minnesota, or the Midwest, or nationally? Like, what are you thinking there?
I mean, yes. Like,
Ah,
I would love for our mentorship program to be a national program for sure, because there is such a dearth of resources, and especially for the trans community, and most of the kids who are part of this program are trans and needing that additional support right now because they're so targeted and all the chaos that's happening politically. But yeah, for the whole broader LGBTQ plus community, I'd love for this to be national. We're looking at some virtual mentorship options because, like you said, it takes a lot of resources and it's very labor intensive because we're case managers essentially to make sure that, like we're tracking, like how are the kids doing? How are the mentors doing? The caregivers? Is everyone safe? Are we, is everything going well? So it takes a lot of time and energy to do mentorship well.
yes.
But we want to do virtual mentoring also because think about, like you just said, like all those kids in those small communities who can't even get to like a St. Cloud, much less the Twin Cities. And that I feel like there's opportunity for national expansion, especially in rural communities like in North Dakota and Wyoming. And yeah, so.
I would also, you're really taking me back. I don't think about my childhood much because it was so long ago. And I was around during like the beginning of the internet, like when they would, this might be even before your time, they'd mail like discs or whatever, and you'd pop them in, and that's how you connect to the internet.
Yeah.
And all of the ways to develop community online were like a little sketchy. It's like not a safe place for a child at all. And so the development of a queer specific online community is really, really a valuable service. And it's amazing. Presumably the kids don't pay or
yeah, no, it's totally all of our programming is totally free.
I assumed that.
Even our youth workshops. Yeah.
Now, this, as you're describing it, and I know we're really only scratching the surface here, but this sounds like a very professional organization, right?
Yeah.
And it really does. And like what is it in your life, in your past, that made you think, okay, I can absolutely do this? Because so many people probably have thought, oh, we should really have a way for queer kids to come together.
Yeah.
And then it never happened,
Yeah.
right? There are only, you said 10 organizations in the country that are doing this.
Yeah.
So what made you go, oh yeah, I got what it takes.
This.
Yeah.
Well, it stemmed in an MBA program, so having that kind of business lens. When I was back in college, in my early college days, I was going to be a teacher, and I was working with autism kids at the time, and I was taking women's studies and like all these classes, and then I remembered I just really liked math, and so I decided to get an accounting degree.
Okay.
And I went and told my women's studies professor, and I was like, I seriously felt like I was selling out, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to do this. And she said, that is amazing because every nonprofit needs a great CFO.
Yes.
And when you're 20, 18, 19, 20, like you don't think like that, right? And so I like worked at NPR for 10 years as a financial analyst and accountant. And then I worked at Land O'Lakes in their international development, which was a nonprofit within a broader $2 billion, whatever $1 billion organization. So I have a very nonprofit background. I have a very corporate background. I worked a lot with like big consulting firms on pitch decks and partnerships, and I've worked across the globe with a lot of different people. And I feel like what I used to do was like design and develop dairy projects in East Africa.
Oh my gosh.
Working with farmers, processors, government, right? All these stakeholders. And instead of doing that, I'm like designing and developing projects for queer kids in Minnesota. So it's a lot of the same skills, but just kind of a different audience and different group of stakeholders. And it's just all about meeting and being out in community and talking to a lot of people and finding out what do we need, where are the gaps, how do we collaborate with like what is Outfront doing, how can we support them, what is like Transforming Families already doing, how do we not overlap, what's Reclaim doing, and like filling in gaps and all working together, which has really been beautiful. So
It's really wonderful. As we were speaking just a little bit before the camera started rolling, and I was telling you about how the first season of this show was a lot of me realizing that there's just this constellation of organizations, support organizations out there who are not always talking to each other. And so it's really wonderful to hear that spirit of collaboration, particularly in service of queer youth. And as you are just, briefly talking about your experience, I'm like, oh, the question is really not like, what made you think you could do this, but why would you give all of this other stuff up?
I wanted to do something closer to home.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, I still like have such a passion for international development. So I joined a board of an international LGBTQ plus org called ORAM. They work with refugees and across the globe. And I feel like maybe QueerSpace, whether it's through our training or through mentorship, we can, I know how to do the global thing, so maybe we will be global, but I also try not to get ahead of myself and, freak out my staff and board and everyone else who's on this journey with me. And
oh no, I say freak them out because I do also have something of a global perspective, primarily when it comes to politics, more so than service. Although I guess service used to be a form of politics. I don't know if it's the same anymore. But there are organizations and individuals who are traveling around the world, taking meetings with world leaders to oppress our people and to prevent us from achieving equality. And so, don't be afraid to think big because other people are thinking big.
Yeah, thank you. You're right.
We need you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, well, Nicki said I'm right, so now it's a great time to take a break. We'll be right back with Nicki Hangsleben, and QUEERSPACE Collective. Talking with Nicki Hangsleben about QUEERSPACE Collective. And I believe you have a gift, which I'm very excited about.
I do. I have a little gift for you.
Yay! Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the button and it's the shirt that Nicki is wearing. I have seen people wear this at the flip phone events, the drag shows and the like. And I'm always like, I want one of those.
We fundraise there every Sunday. We've generated tens of thousands of dollars at drag brunches, selling shots. That money goes to us. The Crave or Union donate the drinks, and then Maddie usually leads it, and we do a little dance and fundraise. And Flip Phone's one of our just an amazing partner.
You really should go. To support QueerSpace, go to a drag brunch, support QueerSpace, but also Maddie's dancing.
Yes, yes, so I love that you know that. It's all about Maddie and the dancing. Yeah.
And I didn't know it was every Sunday because I don't go every Sunday. I go maybe twice a year, and I thought I just got really lucky with when I went. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great partnership. We're very grateful for them.
Okay, so let's. That was really
fun. So now you're on QueerSpace t-shirt, and you can wear it to a Sunday brunch and be like, hey.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna see it online within the next week on Instagram at Jerome T. Evans.
Love it.
But let's bring it back to mentorship because I feel as though there are people out there in the world that don't know they need mentors. They don't know they need community, but they feel lost. And I have a friend in particular that anytime they feel any kind of loss, they give me a call. And I'm like, I don't know, what makes you think I have the answer to your question? But sometimes they just need that little bit of structure. That feeling that there is somebody there, even just to listen. Now, I don't know if so that's my personal anecdotal, unacademic view of why mentorship is important. As someone who is professionally involved in mentorship, why is it important and what does it bring to our community?
Yeah, well, so my mom dated women in the 90s when I was a kid, teenager. And it's why we moved from North Dakota to Minneapolis, or one of the reasons. And so I grew up in queer community with lesbians everywhere. And so when I came out later, in my late teens, early 20s, I already had this whole network of support. And so that was a lot of why when I started saying who's mentoring the queer kids, it was like I knew that having community is so important.
Who was your mentor when you were first coming out?
Well, one of my so I mean, there's so many. I feel like aunties almost,
Oh,
but
sure. Pick your favorite
Zonda.
auntie.
But
I'm just kidding.
Zonda was she lived with us when my mom went to Greece when I was like 14.
Yeah.
But even before that, like she would just pick me up after school and we'd like go to Burger King or go walking down by Minnehaha Falls and just hang out and chat. And so she was just interested in me and interested in my life and just always was really supportive. And so, yeah, it was really, it was just such a gift. She's such a gift. We're still very close.
Oh, good.
Yeah. We don't see each other often because she's back in North Dakota, but yeah, and she like loves my kids, and now she's like an auntie for them. And but we know that, I mean, statistically, if LGBTQ plus youth have at least one supportive adult in their life, that they're 40% less likely to attempt suicide.
Oh.
And for a group of young kids who are 4 to 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than their hetero peers, like this is such a significant
Yes.
impact in their lives. And so the kids who are referred in usually by either caregivers or social workers or therapists. And they're just worried about their kid. And so they refer them in and we set them up with a mentor. And yeah, I hear from parents all the time, like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for y'all. And this just gives their kid someone, they don't always even talk about like the queer stuff, right? But it's like, when you feel like you can show up as your authentic self, in spaces, whether it's, I mean, we all have different communities that we exist in, especially, those of us who have like intersectional identities. And when you're like in your community, like it just feels comfortable in a different kind of way. And so,
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like you were very lucky to have a lesbian mom in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Growing up in the South, like I feel as though Atlanta is a queer space, but so there was an absence of like adult leadership and role models when I was coming up, I think. And at times it almost felt like the everyone was on the same level. I'm like, you're 20 years older than me, but you were acting like a child.
Yeah.
And so there was really no one to teach those like soft skills, like respect and work ethic. And because so many queer people come from like different familial situations. Like maybe you were kicked out. Maybe you don't have a good relationship with your father. Maybe you don't have a good relationship with your mother.
Right.
But there's so many lessons that are taught through those relationships that were missing in my community back then because, I feel as though the older queer men in particular were just happy to be alive. just happy to be here.
Right.
And really thrilled to see like another generation of people coming up that they can relate to.
Yep.
Even now, the reason that resonates with me is because I'm getting older, and some of these younger queers are coming up. I'm like, oh, you remind me of my friend.
Yeah. You'd be a great mentor.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the qualities of a good mentor?
Oh, good question. Someone who asks a lot of great questions.
Okay. Ding. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone who is responsible, a good role model, will show up. We don't have to, people think like to be a mentor, you have to be like super professional and work for like a big organization and have like all your stuff together. And like, no, like just responsive, kind, compassionate, responsible humans.
And what's the time commitment for being a mentor?
For our one-on-one mentorship, we ask for you to hang out with the young person 2 to 3 times per month for 1 to 3 hours. So, and then we do these group events. Like next week we're at Can Wonderland. We're having a family fun day. So like the mentors, the mentees, all the families, they're all going to come and we're just going to have a party there, have some queens and play games. And
that's fun.
Yeah. And we do a lot of like mentor and caregiver support also. And a lot of mentors are also looking for community. And so
Yeah.
they participate not even just to be a mentor, but also to build relationships with other mentors. And
Oh, I can
yeah, it's all
absolutely
about,
see that being a great community
mhm,
of mentors.
yeah.
Do the mentorship activities differ from the hangouts?
No, it's, we
Okay.
call them hangouts. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
The hangouts are like the group hangouts. Well, okay.
Okay.
QueerSpace Hangouts is our mentorship program name.
Okay.
And under that, we have our youth workshops, our one-on-one mentorship program. And then we have monthly hangouts where the kids get together. And like next month, we're doing bingo. Next week, it's can-can. And
One thing I like about the way QueerSpace operates is that so much of your programs and services are online, which is typical. But then also you have like a strategy. You have a theory of change.
we do.
But what is the strategy per se?
Yeah, so our theory of change, just
Okay, well,
very briefly.
Okay, it's
so
complicated.
they can be complicated, but essentially, our mission is to create space for LGBTQ plus youth to feel safe and empowered to be their true selves.
Okay.
And so our theory of change outlines all of the different activities we do, and then the various outcomes and outputs that get to this feeling of being included. And so it's kind of complex. You can find it on our website, QUEERSPACECollective.org.
Yeah.
We just launched a new 3-year strategy. So kind of taking what was my MBA idea, right? And meeting with the board. We did a lot of surveys with communities, with our current mentees and mentors, and our staff. And we did all of these strategy sessions with this amazing facilitator, Marcus Owens. And developed a 3-year strategy because I wanted to get away from like what was just Nicki's vision as the founder to like, okay, now that we're all engaged in this, what do we want QueerSpace to really be? And so we launched a new strategy, which is also on our website. And some of the key things we're focusing on over the next 3 years are to really deepen our mentorship programs in the Twin Cities and St. Cloud, to evaluate virtual mentorship programs, which I mentioned earlier, and then also to have a physical space. Most cities have an LGBTQ center. We don't in the Twin Cities, which is very unique.
You're doing a lot without a space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So that's all the collective stuff. It's like we're at Open Book for the stuff, and we're at Shinebox. If you need an ad agency, they're amazing. They've gifted us free office space in the North Loop for the last little over a year. So we're ready for our own space where we can have a little bit of office space, but also have drop-in space and couches. And I want it to feel like a coffee shop where you can just like come and hang out. And we've known we needed this, but I heard from a mentor a few weeks ago who is trans, who is going to be matched with the trans youth. And they said like, well, you have a space for us to come hang out, right? And I thought, okay, we also need a space so that people in our community who are hanging out, who might feel targeted, like might not feel safe to be out at other coffee shops, can come and like hang at our space. Yeah. So it's kind of starting to come to fruition. I'm hoping we'll be in somewhere and kind of like later this year, maybe like this summer.
Well, I'd be happy to support. I drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
So I will happily come and drink coffee at your place. I'll even buy the beans.
Yeah. Thank you. Cool.
Okay, so that was strategy and theory of change. In general, I really love what you have to say about LGBTQ inclusion. And regarding, I guess it's both the strategy and the theory of change. Are you thinking about the context of what you're doing? Is it like the rest of the world may stay static, but this will be your safe space? Or is it more like, this is a safe space, and from here, we are going to change the rest of the world to make it more inclusive? Or none of the above, I suppose.
No, I mean, that is where, I think it's kind of both. That's where our training and consulting comes into play for us.
That's right.
And where we feel like we can have kind of broader impact, more system level impact by working with all of those youth orgs and corporations too, but really our focus is youth orgs. And most of the time, youth orgs, they like love the queer and trans youth. They just don't always have the tools or know, like, how do we navigate pronouns, or how do we navigate parents who don't support their kid, or kids use different names here
Yeah.
than they do at home, and how do we keep them safe and allow them to show up? And so
Yeah.
it's like not for lack of will often, it's usually just for needing more tools. And so it's both. It's like we want this this space where people can just show up in queer community, but we also want to make all the spaces everywhere safer for our kids, right?
That's beautiful. And I think, thinking back, just the beginning of the conversation, it's my fault. I should have grounded this in the known fact that kids are hard. Dealing with kids, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't want to mess any kids up. I don't want to do anything wrong. And there are like laws and rules and like social norms around interacting with children that I do feel like a lot of other organizations do not feel equipped to manage and to navigate. And so your organization's ability to help teach, it's really nice. It's a wonderful service. I hope that you're charging.
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
because that's what helps pay for like the other stuff we do also.
Yeah. Well, how can people get involved and be supportive of QueerSpace?
Yeah, so our website has a lot of information, QUEERSPACEcollective.org. You can refer a young person in there. You can sign up to be a mentor there. We're always looking for both.
Is it typically the caregiver or the parent that's doing the referral?
It is.
Okay.
Well, 50% caregiver parent, 50% social worker therapist.
Okay.
Caregivers do have to sign off. We know that creates barriers for kids whose parents don't know they're queer or don't accept them.
Yeah.
So that's also why we want and why we're building a space so that those kids can show up without having to have parent permission.
The other kids are just like forging their parents' signature like in the
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, we're really like, you're putting like an adult and a young person out into the world together. So we do a lot of like background checks and have pretty strong rules around like what's acceptable and what's not in this program. And we're checking it often. So no, we're paying attention. You couldn't slip in that way. So we're finding other avenues to reduce those barriers. You can definitely donate. We are always looking for contributions to support this work on our website. And on April 27th, tickets go on sale next week. We're going to have our third annual birthday bash. We're going to be 3 years old at Pica in St. Paul. Pica, St. Paul, in the Vandalia Tower.
Okay. What's the date of that?
April 27th. It's a Saturday night. We'll have some drag queens. You'll hear from our mentors and caregivers. Silent auction, party. It's kind of a blend of a gala and a party and celebration. And so that's April 27th if you want to get tickets.
It's a gala. What's the dress code?
Yeah, that's why it's not a gala. It's like a fundraiser-esque, like some people might think of it more like a gala, but it's more of a definitely. I mean, that's what we're all about, right? Yeah. Everyone showing up as their authentic selves in whatever space they want, and definitely in our queer spaces. So.
Oh my gosh. Now, who are some of the corporate sponsors that you have? Because in my mind, we've talked about Best Buy. We've talked about you several times today.
Yeah.
Has Best Buy reached out, or have you?
We haven't started so we did a project with them and got some grant funding to do that project with them.
Was the grant funding from Best Buy, or is it from someone else? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that was just the funding mechanism, but it was a big project that we did with them.
Good, so long as they're
And we worked with their social impact team really closely, and it was a cool project. We receive funding from a lot of foundations like Carlson Family Foundation, Blue Cross Blue Shield, St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation, Morgan Family, and St. Cloud. Too many to notice or to mention. They will be on our 990s later, so if anyone wants to go deep on that.
But if you're a part of a larger organization or medium-sized organization and you want to support, so you could support through your consultation services, their organization can become a client, right?
Yep.
Or they can donate through some vehicle, but it sounds like there's some flexibility there.
Yeah, and we are looking for sponsors for our birthday bash. So.
Oh, really?
it could be a small organization, a large corporation. We have a lot of different packages.
Cute.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's take a quick coffee break.
Okay.
I am running low.
Okay.
But we'll be right back with Nicki from QUEERSPACE Collective. Welcome back. You're watching Bottomless Coffee with Jerome, and we're having a fantastic conversation about youth mentorship with Nicki from QUEERSPACE Collective. Okay, now this happens the end of every episode.
Mm-hmm.
I like to pass the mic over and give the guests the opportunity to share something or talk about something that's important to them. So, like, what would you say your final message is that you want to make sure our audience takes away with them today?
Yeah. I think working with queer and trans youth right now, especially with politically what's happening and the trans community especially being under attack, and it's so frustrating and so heartbreaking, especially when we see these attacks on our young people, because they're just young people. Like, they're just a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 15-year-old who are just trying to be themselves, right? And most of the time, they don't have a political agenda. They're not trying to like push a narrative by being queer or being trans or being non-binary or gender fluid, right? They're just like trying to create space for themselves and figure out like how they exist as a human on this planet, as we all did when we were young and continue to do every day. And so I always just encourage folks to, and queer or straight or anywhere in between, to just give young people space to be their authentic selves. And even if you don't understand it or saying they them pronouns feels awkward, know that when kids are recognized, their suicide rates are reduced dramatically, and they just feel such a, like, we all want to be seen, right? And so I think, like, if we can get out of our own way as adults and what these preconceived notions of how we think young people should show up and just give them the space to just be, even if it's awkward. I just think that is such an amazing contribution that we can give to the next generation of kids who are really showing up in a cool, less binary, beautiful way. So
it's interesting. You mentioned the political attacks, and you're so right, because as children and youth are figuring themselves out, they're not like organizing, you know? And so politicians they are straight up punching down, you know? Like 100%. They're like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna really offend my donors. It's typically the people on the right. Not gonna offend my donors, I'm not gonna offend my constituents, and like there's not gonna be like retribution, really, because I feel like as adults, and I'm gonna lay this squarely on gay men, we are not doing enough to step up in our community. Like, the patriarchy is real, you know, and like, how are we leveraging the privilege that we have to defend the rest of our coalition? Because a lot of the conversation I'm hearing in gay specific spaces are like, well, LGBTQ, it's a wide terminology, but I really only identify as the G. And I'm like, well, that's true. But when it's just the G showing up alone, we don't get anything done. We're not recognized. There's not enough of us. We are a collective. We are a group. An attack on one is an attack on all of us. And I think the T in particular is quick and strong. Like, the adult trans community, they're fierce. And if someone picks on gay men, like gay men in drag, the trans community is the first part of our coalition to step up and say something. And I feel like gay men can do better, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hear too, you know, especially older generations, that they're tired, right? And they feel like they've been fighting this fight for decades. And, you know, we got gay marriage, and that's amazing and gave us, you know, a lot of us additional privilege. which is crazy because it's not really a privilege. It's just
Yeah.
like a equal right,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, there's so much more work to do and to keep doing,
Right.
because our community is being attacked. And you're right, when one of our letters or one of a group in our community, it's an entire community, and so.
And I might have blinders on because I'm in social media and I'm seeing so much. I feel like the organization required for some of the parties that gay men have, like we might know. I think I've ranted about this on the show before, so sorry about that. But we know where we're going on vacation for the next like 3 years. We know which parties are where, who's
Yeah.
gonna be there. There is a cruise ship that is just one giant gay party. And I'm like, we charter boats?
Yeah,
Like, but do we know who our representatives are?
Mhm.
Do we know who our senators are? Are we contributing? Are we making sure that our voices are being heard? Because you can even, I'm on a soapbox at this point, a caffeinated soapbox. We reached the caffeinated soapbox part of this episode.
I love
But
it.
even if you made sure that everyone who was coming onto the cruise ship was registered to vote,
Yeah.
it would make a huge difference. If, we had a letter writing campaign and held it at a saloon, that would make a difference. I suspect that a lot of our representatives would happily go to saloon.
Yeah. And speaking of
engage.
parties,
Yes.
we love to show up at these parties that are already being organized,
Yes.
to tell you about our work. So that's another way people can get involved. If you want to host a gathering or you're already having a
Oh,
party,
you can host one?
please.
Oh,
Like if you were like, okay, Aaron and I want to host, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I kind of am.
sure.
Want to gather a bunch of our friends together and have Nicki show up and chat about queer space and
Yeah.
just have a party, but then also make it a fundraiser. We love to do that stuff.
Oh my God. Okay, you put me on blast. I'm going to put my neighbors on blast because they they have these types of parties all the time,
Yeah.
and the reason they have the parties is because they keep traveling and signing up for these like wine subscriptions.
Yeah.
And so at some point they had like 500 extra bottles of wine
Oh my
in their
gosh.
basement.
Oh my
and
gosh.
they were like,
I
please
want
come
those
help.
I want those neighbors.
I know, we go hang out there all the time.
Yeah.
But they're politically engaged, and I bet they would be thrilled to support. We can have wine on the porch,
Yeah.
and connect more people with Queer Space.
Exactly.
And they live in the neighborhood, and they haven't met John Gatorman yet.
Yeah, we can
and
invite
so
John too.
Bring people together.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Okay, but
Cool.
we'll take this offline.
Sounds good.
Iggy, this has been just a really, really wonderful conversation. I hope you'll come back in the future.
Yeah. I'd
Because I
love to.
think that 3-year plan is very intriguing, and so I'm interested in engaging with you in the future and hearing how it's going.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been really fun. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, support queer youth and QUEERSPACE Collective by going to QUEERSPACECollective.org and stream every episode of Bottomless Coffee with Jerome on bottomlesscoffeeshow.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.